All right, so we just got done talking about the spread operator and also the rest pattern. Now we're going to talk about these rest parameters. So this is really, really helpful. And basically, when we think about the rest pattern inside of a function or as the parameters for a function, then we're going to call this the rest parameters. Now, if you go back to MDN, I'll link this in the description. It just says the rest parameter syntax allows a function to accept an indefinite number of arguments as an array. Okay, so if you come down here, there's a quick little example. So you see here you have this function, it's a sum function, okay? So you have these three dots and then you have the args, okay? It's just abbreviated here. And basically what this is going to do, when you pass in these numbers separated by commas, it's going to collect those guys and condense it into an array for you, okay? So now you have this array here and they're using the reduce method on it. We haven't talked about that yet, but that's a way where you can get the sum of all the elements in an array. Okay, we'll cover that later on. But basically you can see down here they have 1, 2, and 3 that's being passed in. So this gets converted into an array. They run the reduce method on it and they end up with 6, right? 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6. Here they do the same thing. So they have 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Again, all these numbers become condensed into the array for you. And then 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 4 is 10. Now I just want to point out one other thing before we move on. For the quick reference section, you see a function definition can have only one rest parameter, okay? Also, the rest parameter must be the last parameter in the function definition. So they give you two examples here in pink, or you can say red, whatever color you want to say, where it's not right? So you have basically 3 of these guys here, okay? That's not going to work. And here it's first, right? So that doesn't make any sense because you're trying to basically collect all these guys. How does it know where to stop if you're basically putting this in and then something after it? It doesn't make sense. So you want it to be last. So let's say in this case, you have something here and then something here. So the first 2 guys, and then all the rest of the things that you pass in are going to be collected and condensed into one array, which will be called correct inside of your function. Okay, let's now go back to the code editor and let's think about some simple examples. So I'm going to start with something we already know, just using the spread operator just to get some practice with that. So I'm going to do a sum function. So function, let's call it sum numbers, and I'll call it spread, okay? Because we're going to use the spread operator. So let's do A, B, C, D, and E. Again, you can use default values here if you want. You could set each of those equal to 0 to start because adding 0 will not change the value. But I'm just going to leave it alone because I'm going to pass in exactly 5 values each time. Okay, so I'm just going to return A plus B plus C plus D plus E. Simple enough. And then down here, basically, I'm going to set up an array. So I'm going to call this const numbers. And let's just go something simple, something we've already seen. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. So if you wanted the sum of this, 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 4 is 10, and 10 plus 5 is 15. Okay, so this, if you sum the numbers, will give you 15. So let's console.log, and I'm going to go sum number spread. Inside of here, you could pass in the numbers like this. So you could do this. So this would work. So let me show you that. And then also, it would work if we used our spread operator. So if I wanted to, I would type numbers, okay? But I'm not going to just do that. I have to put the spread operator in here for this to work because it's going to grab these numbers or these elements individually and put them in here. So 1 will come in for A, 2 will come in for B, 3 will come in for C, so on and so forth. That's the magic of the spread operator. So let's pop this open and let's run this guy. And you see you get 15 twice. I'll show you what happens really quickly. I think you already know this. If you delete these 3 dots, you're basically going to take this entire array and it's like you passed it in for A. You're going to get some weird string concatenation. So let's just see that real quick. I'll clear this and run this. So you get 15 and 15, and then you get this weird 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you get undefined, 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 and undefined. So it basically converted this into a string for you. Okay, that's what you passed in for A. And then the B, the C, the D, and the E, those were all undefined. So it did string concatenation with everything else being undefined. Okay, so let's move on now. We know how to work with this. And I'm just going to show you an example with the rest parameters. So I'm going to go function. Let's call this sum numbers, and let's call it rest now. Okay, so instead of doing what I just did, I'm going to now go ... numbers. Okay, so when I pass in these comma separated values, it's going to collect them for me and basically condense them into an array, which will be referred to inside of this guy, inside of the function, as numbers. So if you wanted to get the sum of all the elements of an array, we have that reduce method, which we haven't covered. We already talked about the fact that you could start with like a counter, so let my sum. Let's just set this equal to 0. Okay, so we're not doing math with undefined. I'm going to do numbers, which is the name of the array that's going to be in there. I'll go dot for each. And inside of here, I'm just going to use an arrow function. So I'll call each one number, and then I'll use my arrow. And basically I'll do my sum plus equals the number. Okay, so let's stop for a second and think about what's going to happen. Number here just refers to each element inside the array as we're going through. Okay, so all I'm doing, I started with 0. So the first time through, let's say it was 1. Okay, well, it would now be 0 plus 1. So now my sum would be 1. Okay, and then the next time through, let's say it was 2. Well, now it would be 1 plus this new guy, which would be 2. So now I would have 3. Okay, once I'm done with all of these, I want to return the my sum, and I'll basically be done, right? So if I go something like const, let's say we do numbers, and again, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I can't exactly put this in here because if you put this guy in here directly, it's a problem because it's expecting values separated by a comma, and I have an array, right? You can fix that with the spread syntax, but before I do that, let me just call this, so console.log, and let's go sum numbers rest. And inside of here, I'm just going to grab these really quickly, and again, I'll show you how to fix this in a second. I'm just going to put this in here like this, and let's go ahead and pop this open, and let's go ahead and run this. And you again get 15, okay, as expected. If you got rid of this, and let's say you just typed in numbers here, okay, this is where you really need to understand what's going on. Now you're taking an array in here, so you're trying to take this guy right here and pass it in here, okay, and this is not going to make any sense, right, because it's trying to collect comma-separated values and put them into an array for you. It's not expecting an array. So if we pop this back open and we run this now, you just get nonsense, right? So basically, to fix this, what you'd want to do is, again, use these 3 dots, okay? So I know this kind of doesn't make so much sense because basically you're starting with an array and then you're using the spread operator to grab the individual elements and spread them out in here. And then you're collecting those and then putting them back into an array. But basically you're making this into something that can accept these comma-separated values if you have that, or it can accept an array using this syntax here, okay? So you're kind of making it more dynamic. So if we pop this back open and we run this guy, we're back to getting 15. Okay, so you can play around with this if you want. We can copy this a few times, and basically you can put the ... and you can just put an array in here. So let's do maybe like 5, 10, 15, and 20 just to play around with this. So this should be 15 plus 15 is 30 plus 20. That should be 50. And then let's do maybe another one. Let's just do some comma separated values. Let's say we did 13. Let's say we did 12. Let's say we did 10. Let's say we did 11. And let's say we did like maybe 15. Okay. So we've got 13 plus 12, which is going to be 25. Then plus 10, which is 35. Then plus 11, which is 46. Then plus 15, which is going to give us 61. Okay. So let's pop this open and let's run this guy. You get 15, 50, and 61 as expected. Now, really quickly, let me just modify this just a little bit. So you saw in the examples on MDN, you could have something else in here. So let's say, for example, what I want to do is I want to start out with this guy right here. I want to have a my sum, which sums the elements of an array, but maybe I want to multiply. So a times my sum, let me return that. So return a times my sum, okay? So for example, if I call this guy, let's say I go console.log, so console.log, and let's say I call the sum numbers rest. So for the first guy, let's say I passed in like a 4, and then I pass in like a 3, a 2, and maybe a 5. Well, let's think about this. This first guy, 4, is going to be A, okay? Then the rest of these guys are going to get collected up into an array. So you'll have an array that has 3, 2, and 5 in it. So basically, it's going to go through and say, okay, 3 plus 2 is 5, 5 plus 5 is 10, and so in the end, it's going to take this A, which is 4, it's the first guy there, so 4 times 10 would give me 40, okay, so that's going to be the result. So let's pop this open, and let's run this guy, and you get 40 as expected. All right, so let me wipe this and give you one more example. Never hurts to have too much practice. So I'm just going to set up a little function. So function, I'm going to call this get today's menu, something like this. I'm going to go ... items. So basically what we pass in here, we're going to collect them again and make it into an array. So I'll do something like let my string is equal to, I'm going to start with today's. So today's menu like this. And maybe we'll do items, which again is an array, dot for each. So dot for each. I'm going to use item. Okay, that's going to be individually each one. I'll use my arrow here. And I'll basically just say my string plus equals, I'll do something like a new line, and then $ curly brace is the item. And so basically, let me come out here. I'm just going to return this my string guy, okay? So let me call this. I'm going to console.log this get today's menu. And what do I want to pass in here? Maybe like pizza, so hamburgers, and maybe fries. We could put it like that. Maybe like tacos and chips, and then maybe steak with rice, and then maybe like lasagna. So lasagna. And let's run this guy. So you get today's menu. You've got your pizza, your hamburgers and fries, your tacos and chips, your steak with rice, and your lasagna. Now you can even make this a little bit more fancy. Let's say that I wanted to put the prices in. So let's say I had an array that was being passed in. So let's say this is 0. So I got to put this in here like this. So 0. And then maybe I'll put a colon, and I'll put $item, and then 1, and then something like that. So basically this would be your item. So maybe pizza, and then this would be the price. So all I would have to do here is maybe wrap these guys. So let me wrap this with some square brackets. And I can just do this really quickly like this. So select all of these, and then this one, put a bracket there, and then I will select all of these. So there, and there, and there. Put a bracket there. And then let's just put some prices in here. So I'll put the $. I'll put it as a string. So let's say this is $3. Let's say, for example, this is, I don't know, $2. And then tacos and chips, I don't know, let's say this is going to be, I don't know, $1. And I forgot my $sign, so $1. And then steak with rice, that's usually pretty expensive. So let's say maybe this is like $10. And then lasagna, let's say that's $5. So let's go ahead and put a comma, and we'll say this is $5. Let's go ahead and try this one out. So you see now we've changed it, made it a little bit better. So for today's menu, you've got pizza, which is $3, hamburger and fries, which is $2, tacos and chips, which is $1, steak with rice, which is $10, and then finally lasagna, which is $5.